say, we create an anonymous object and return it as a copy. So why does an overload operator commonly return a reference to an output stream object? Why do we return a reference from this overloaded operator?
So that cascading.
So yeah, so that it supports cascading. If you don't return anything, you can still use that operator, but if you want to repeatedly use it as a cascade, or if you want to use it with other operators, you have to return a reference of the host stream. So how do we call the destructor of a local object? So what's a local object then? First, try to solve this one. When I say local, what's the meaning of that?
In a code segment.
So in a code segment, in a function, so any variable defined in a function, it's a local variable. Any object defined in a function is a local object. So I just created a local object. How do I create a local object? Just define it, and it's going to be created. So do I call the destructor of a local object? No. So your answer will be about that. So you can't call the destructor of the local object by yourself. It will be called automatically at the end of the function. Still, it will be called by the program, not by you.
Are there any non-local objects?
Non-local objects, dynamic allocations. When you dynamically create an object, it's going to be a dynamic allocation. It's not going to be local.
What about global objects?
Global objects, they are not local as well. They will be destroyed at the end of the program. So create two int variables, a and b. Create a reference r for variable a, then make r to refer to variable b. So let's create two integers, a. So that's first step. Create a reference r for variable a. How do I create a reference so that it refers to variable a? So I create a reference. This is r. How do I make it refer to a? I just assign a to it. When I create it, that's the initialization. Now r refers to a. What about the third step? Make r to refer to b. Instead of this r referring to a, I want it to refer to b. How do I make it? If I just assign b to r, no, it's not going to happen, right? So you can't do that. The third step, it's not possible. Once you create a reference and make it refer to something, you have to make it refer to something, by the way. You have to initialize it. You can't change it back. So r is just another name for this variable. That's it from that point on. So you can't do this.
Can't we do like address of r assign address of b or something?
It's address of r. Okay, address of r is just okay. Address of b. You cannot assign anything to address of b. Or you cannot, okay, if you just try to extract the address of b and try to assign it r like this.
Yes,
so r has to be a pointer.
Oh, yeah.
R is just a reference. So that's the difference between a reference and a pointer is that a reference is not a variable. A pointer is a variable.
Address of r assign address of b.
You cannot assign anything to the address of b. Address of b is not a variable.
No, address of r. I'm sorry, I was saying backwards.
Address of r.
Yeah.
You are assigning it to where?
It's assigned is on the other side. And assign address of b to address of r.
This is not an assignable. It's not a variable. So you cannot. Okay, you're trying to assign address of B to address of R, something like this. This is not assignable. It has to be a variable on the left-hand side.
It's an R value.
Yes. Okay, so this is first section. By the way, you are not going to see the same organization in the online midterm, but the questions will be similar difficulty or similar type. Okay, some output questions, sections. I will ask a couple of output questions in the exam. Let's try to do this. So we have a class definition A. We have in the private section, we have an integer array of 3 elements. In this public section, we have a default constructor. The initialization section, we initialize the array elements to be zeros. Okay, so definition empty. We have another constructor. Not a constructor. This we have an operator plus plus increment operator returns a reference of A. Inside it just is this a post increment or a pre increment? Pre increment. So if you want to make it a post increment, you have to pass an dummy integer argument to it. So inside what I do, I increment the first element of array, assign it to a temp integer. I increment the second element array, add and assign it to the first one. Increment this third element and add and assign to the second one. Assign the temp to add and assign it to the last element and return the reference. This returns a reference for the particular object. We have another member print, just prints the array elements. In main, I create two objects, A objects, object 1 and object 2. I just call pre-increment operator on the first object. Then I just call it as print member function. I call the pre-increment on the first object again, and I assign it to the second object. By the way, can I assign these two objects? This object, as you can see, has an array member. Can I assign arrays? No. But I can assign two objects, right? So how does it assign it? So how can I assign two objects, one object to the other, if the object includes an array as a member?
By using array, by using pointer.
No, we don't use a pointer. No, we are not using operator overloading. There's actually, when you assign one object to another, assignment operator is used, but we don't have a definition for that here. Still, it does. So the compiler provides an assignment.
We don't have, but this plus language has.
Has, but we can't assign arrays, right? So object 1 has this array, object 2 has another array. When we assign object 1 to object 2, that array will be copied to the other array. How is it possible? So basically, when you assign one object to another, it's not going to look what's inside. It is just going to copy that memory block and assign it to another memory block. It doesn't look inside. It doesn't just check every member and copy them one by one. It doesn't work like that. It's just a giant memory copy operation. That's why we can just assign two objects. Okay, so that's true for the objects which have uh,